Hello, Mr. Draft, and hello to whoever may be watching this video. So for our statistics project, Matthew and I decided to talk about chess. So chess is a two-player strategy board game that is believed to have originated in eastern India around 280 to 550 in the Gupta Empire. So there's this popular fact that the number of possible games of chess is greater than the number of atoms in the observable universe. And here you see the number of atoms in the universe, and here you see how many possible games of chess could be played. Now this number is huge and it's rather inconceivable to us humans, but the reason why it's so large is because there's so many different moves you can already just do at the first move, and the second move it's already at like 100 or something possible games. So you see how quickly this multiplies, and it also just shows how complex the game is. So this number is called Shannon's number because it was discovered by Claude Shannon, who is seen on the presentation, and he was a mathematician, electrical engineer, and cryptographer in the 1950s who introduced the world to computer chess, which is what our project is essentially about. So this was our question of interest, which is, in the game of chess, is the probability that the white player wins the same in professional play compared to computer versus computer simulations? And with this question, some other questions arose, such as, does the starting move matter? So is white's first move, how large of an impact does it have on the game or on its win rate? And what about the black win rate? How often does black win? Because there can be ties, so white win rate doesn't necessarily reflect black win rates. Alright, so before we dive into the statistics and all the data that we collected, we decided it was important to give a quick and small introduction to the game of chess. So as you see, we have a chessboard, we have black pieces and white pieces. Both players have exactly the same pieces, and both players have 8 pawns. They have 2 rooks, 2 knights, 2 bishops, 1 queen, and 1 king. So the rook is a pretty powerful piece that can move vertically and horizontally, and the knight has a weird jump where it can jump over other pieces, and it goes always 2 forward, 1 to the right, or 1 forward and 2 to the left. Or so say it's here, it can go there, it can go here, it can go here. So it's a very sneaky piece that jumps around and is very unexpected because all the other pieces always are interrupted or are blocked by other pieces. This is the only piece that can jump over things. The bishop, that you have 2 of them, like I said before, and you have one on the black field, one on the white field, and this is important because the black bishop, or the bishop on the black field, it starts on the black field, can only move diagonally on the black fields, so he's going to stay the whole game long on the black diagonal fields, while the white bishop is going to be able to travel around the white fields. Now the queen is the most powerful piece in the game because she is like a combination of the rook and the bishop, in that she can move horizontally and vertically like the rook, and that she can move diagonally like the bishops on either black or white fields. The king is the most important piece in the game because once your king is in checkmate, then you lose the game. Or if you put the enemy into checkmate, enemy's king into checkmate, then you win the game. But he is a rather weak piece because he can only move one field away from him in all directions. The pawns are the weakest pieces in the game because they can only move forward and they can only move in this direction, so only like straight ahead. And the first, and our project was about, is the win rate for white different than in simulated games compared to professional games, or is it the same? And the reason for this is because white always begins the game. So does the fact that they get to start the game, that white starts the game, does that give them an advantage? And the answer to this, quite simply, is yes. There's approximately a 57% win rate, or higher win rate compared to black for white. So you're more likely to win the game if you're white. But we were interested in, is this win rate ratio, is it different in simulated games compared to professional games? So we decided that this was not enough because we also wanted to know, what about the starting move? Since the first move, white has 20 different possible moves. So it can move each pawn 1 forward, or the exception to the 1 forward move for pawns is that the first move they can also go 2 forward. So they can either go 1 or 2. So each pawn can go 1 forward, or each pawn can go 2 forward, so that's already 16 moves. And then the knight, since I explained already before, he can jump over, so 2 to the two forward, one to the left, two forward, one to the right. So he can go this, that. That's another 2 moves, and this knight can do the same. So we have 20 total moves that a player can start with, but which one is the best? There's not really an answer to this, but mostly the most common move is e2 to e4. So you have, as you see here, you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And here, this pawn is on the field e2 because it's e and 2, and he can move to e4, and that's the most common opening move. And in fact, our chess simulated games or simulation played on the E file, so this is the E file, and on the D file it always played either this move or this move. So we recorded whether a piece moved on the E file or on the D file. And what does black do when white plays this common move, E2 to E4? Well, the computer responded in different ways, and now it gets a little more complicated because he has different responses that he can do. So the most common response to this is what we called an active response, because the black player would move his pawn facing the white's pawn. So he would do the same move essentially. It's reflected, so it would be e7 to e6. E7 to e5, and we call this active. But he can also do what we call a defensive move, which would be e7 to e6. Now, these are obviously not the only moves that he can do. He could do anything else, but it's important that you match your opponent, especially when white has the momentum because he's starting off. So it's important to match your opponent, and if you want to have an active or defensive style is up to you. But doing something like this doesn't really give you any advantage, because having control of the middle of the board early on is important to gain advantages and to get all your other pieces free, so you can free up diagonals for the bishops, for your queen, and start getting all your pieces out. So it's important to move your pawns out first, and it's important to move the middle pawns out. Now, normally computer, so as I said before, the computer always moved, the white computer always moved e2 to e4, d2 to d4. But in professional play, you see wider variation, because professionals they prepare their games, and so they have like specific strategies or whatever to outplay their opponents and to bait them. So it's a bit different. But for the computers, we decided that we would record whether a computer played e2 to e4, so e file or d file, and whether the enemy reacted with an active or defensive move. Now, there was also some other moves that the computer reacted with besides the active and the defensive. For example, the knight. Sometimes the computer would move its knight out, because this knight would be then attacking this pawn right away, or it would move the other knight and would be defending this field, for example. So these were also some other moves that the computer did, or sometimes it did some obscure moves like this, where it would basically give up its pawn, but then it would take it again. But that doesn't really matter. So it was either active, defensive, or we labeled this as other. We categorized these moves as other. So anything besides these two were called other. So what if the computer, what if the computer decided to move on the D file? So it would do D2 to D4. Well, the same thing goes here. I mean, the computer's not going to respond with this, but it might respond again with this active. So it faces the enemy pawn. It says yeah, and then, or it can go one move ahead. So we would call this active and this defensive. Now again, it can do any other move, so we would have categorized that as other. So I hope you understand the game of chess a bit better now, and this should definitely help you to understand our project.
Okay, so I'll be showing you how we did our simulations for our chess games. So as you can see here, I have the Mac chess application open, and when you open this, when you start a new game, you can see here that you can do human v human, human versus computer, computer versus human, and computer versus computer. So to simulate, we did computer versus computer. All right, and then down here, you can choose the strengths. So on strong, the computer thinks for, as you can see here, it thinks for 256 seconds per move. And the other simulations that we did, the computer only thinks one move ahead, and it obviously plays faster then, but this is what we considered as the weak computer. So this was the weak computer simulated chess game, and this ended in a draw, as you can see up here. Unfortunately, when I was doing the weak simulated chess games, 75% of the games ended in draws, and black only won 2 games, and every time white won, it was 34 moves. So white started with an e2 to e4 pawn move, and black responded with an active pawn move. And so we would record that. Then we would go down here and record the total moves. The total moves were 63, but when you actually look at the game, this isn't a proper draw, because a draw is defined by the king not being able to move, but also not being attacked. But the king could still move to this white field. And this is a draw due to the fact that the last few moves that here are all very similar, and due to the repetition, the computer decided to call it a draw even though white had the advantage. This is a strong computer simulation, which ended with a white win due to the fact that the black king is attacked and cannot move to any of the spaces around it due to those also being attacked. As we can see, the first move is an e2 to e4 pawn move, and black responded with a defensive pawn move, which is only moving the pawn 1 forward. When we scroll down, we can see that the game ended with 56 moves, and after white's 56th move, black couldn't move again.